Okay, so we've talked about how you reference a pointer. You basically you make an address and then you tell the computer what the pointer refers to. If you then want to get to the thing, then what you need to do is dereference the pointer. So it's kind of like we're calling the object that's there. So there's a couple ways to do it. The first is to use star in front of the pointer name. So here we go. So this is the first bit of code, which I actually put over here already. So we've got our usual headers like we always do. So we've got the IO stream, we've got the namespace. Here's int main that we know and love. So we're going to declare an integer x. We're going to say, hey, let's set x equal to 3. Okay. And then we're going to say int star. So we're making a pointer. And the pointer is going to be called y. So y is an address. It's like 10 Downing Street. It's an address. And then we're going to say y is going to refer to x. So we say y equals ampersand x. So essentially, y is going to be 3 at the moment. And then we're going to dereference the pointer, meaning that we're going to output star y. So then what this should do is output 3, because y is just referring to 3. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do star y and reset that to 5. And then we're going to output x and see if by changing y, it will also change x. Let's see what happens, shall we? So there it goes. All right, so check that out. So we outputted y, we dereferenced the pointer, we did cout star y, and it output the 3. Then what we're doing is we're changing what y refers to. So we're saying star y equals 5. And what you'll notice is that when I output x, which is actually what the second thing is, it's a lot like when we pass by reference. When I change the pointer y, it's going to change x along with it. So you can do stuff to x and it'll change y. You can do stuff to y, it'll change x. So that's that right there. All right, so that's just kind of a description of what we just did. So I'm going to kind of go past that here. Let's see. Another way to dereference a pointer is to use an array operator and access element 0. So this is just a slightly different way of doing the exact same thing. Because if there's one thing engineers and computer programmers love, it's doing things in like multiple ways. And I actually had a guy, he was a technical writer. He was actually an English major, and he worked as a technical writer, writing basically instruction manuals. And so he would always talk with these engineers and then write instructions on like how to do stuff for people who were not engineers. And they always gave him this feedback. It's like, well, you know, you could also do it this way. You could also do it that way. And his response would always be like, bro, if you're teaching people to do something for the first time, why don't you give them one way? And maybe like I know you're an engineer and you think shortcuts are cool and like you try to save time and be efficient, but bro, why don't we like get a handle on like the standard way, and then we can do like the shortcuts later. Anyway, gotta love engineers. My father-in-law is an engineer, and my brother-in-law is a computer scientist. He works at the MRI lab at WashU, and yes, they are a unique breed, possibly on the autism spectrum, but I digress. All right. All right, it's compiling away. It's going to do the exact same thing as the other program. So So this, let's see, all right, there you go. So anyway, so what we got going on? So we declared X is 3, the pointer is Y, and then we're dereferencing the pointer Y ampersand X. And then here we're basically saying, instead of doing, what was it, star Y, instead we're saying Y bracket 0. And so it's just, and then when we changed it, it's Y bracket 0 instead of star Y, but it does like the exact same thing. So there you go. So anyway. All right. Let's see here. If we have a pointer to an object, let's see here. So P is a pointer to an object. The object has a member variable or function. So there's basically a third way we can do this if it's an object. So if you're doing object-oriented stuff, like this isn't necessarily the case for vanilla C++, but like if you've got a class and then the class has variables in it, member variables in it, the third way you can do the exact same thing is you can do P arrow member. So here's a slightly different example here. Let's see, what do we have here? So all right, so we're going to include IO stream. We're going to include string because we're going to do stuff with text this time. We're still using the namespace. All right, we're going to, in order for this to work, we need to have a new class. So we're going to have a class called hero. And in order to actually access the stuff, we're going to make this stuff public because by default, classes are actually private. So we're going to have a string for the name and a string for the characteristic. In the main program, we are going to create a hero H. We're going to define the name of this hero, so h.name. We're going to name our hero Hercules. We're going to give our hero H a characteristic, and his characteristic is strength. And then we're going to do hero star of laboring hero, because fun fact, Hercules did what are 12 labors. Because I know you were all totally up on your Greek mythology here. So he did a bunch of labors because I think he like accidentally got drunk and murdered his wife and felt bad about it. So then he had to like atone. So Zeus told him, well, why don't you do a bunch of like really hard chores for some people? No, Zeus was actually the one who ate one of his babies. No. He also liked to let's just say the Title IX office would seriously sit down Zeus and give him a serious talking to. Like transforming yourself into animals is already kind of sketchy, but what he then proceeded to do while a swan or a bull or who knows what else, like you need to leave those girls alone. That is not appropriate behavior. Anyway, those Greeks, I tell you. Where were we? So so we got a laboring hero. So we got a what is this? We got a pointer to the laboring hero. And then we're going to dereference laboring hero and be like, hey, this is going to refer to H, which is Hercules. And then what you can do, here's the cool part. I know you've all been waiting for this part. So we say, all right, so when we're going to output this, instead of doing like star Y or Y bracket 0 like we did before, because this is a class, what you can do is you can say laboring hero arrow name and output his name. And then you can do that with like his characteristic too. And then here you can do it like star, like this is like yet another way to do this. Because if there's one thing people in technical fields love, it's like multiple ways of doing the same thing. Because it's not like you could just do it one way and call it a day. Oh no, bro, that's not how we roll. All right. So we run this and we'll see what happens here. So what do we got? Hercules has the characteristic of strength. And then since we did it twice, a different way, Hercules has the characteristic of strength. Imagine that. Okay, so. Well, so it would reference a Boolean variable. So, because it's not like a Boolean, like you'd have a function that spits out a Boolean.
Yeah.
But a Boolean is a type of variable, which is what all these are. Yeah. And the thing about Booleans is that you basically only have two options, which is true or false.
So if I say I made a pointer referencing a bool, and it held true like sometimes throughout the system, and then it's false later throughout the system, would that be able to like change its memory based on? I'm sorry, I'm being confusing. I'm not describing myself there.
Well, I mean, it would depend a lot on the context of what exactly you're trying to achieve.
So
I guess in some ways, I think though what my gut tells me is a pointer is probably going to be a little overpowered for what you're trying to achieve. Because really, from what you've described so far, it sounds like all you're really doing is like if-else statements, and they're if-else statements testing like a bool. And a pointer is designed for, if you're making your own classes and then you're trying to, because big picture, what this is trying to do is like you make your own class and then you might have another class that'll like pull from that. Like if we were going to really go all in on a blackjack game program, like you could have a class for like cards and then have a class for like the players and like how much money they have and how much they're betting. And the like player class would need to refer to like the card class. And you could do that like with pointers and basically say, okay, the cards that the person has in their hand is going to refer to this other class. And so you point it to a different class. But what you're describing sounds like this is like bringing a jackhammer to a birdhouse making project. Like it's probably more trouble to make the jackhammer build the birdhouse effectively than to just stick with maybe like a normal hammer is kind of my gut.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
If you're not doing something that necessitates the making of your own classes, you frankly probably don't need pointers. But anyway, all right. So we basically talked about all this stuff. So I think we're done with this page. I thought it was Kronos who ate his children. That is true. Kronos actually did eat some of his children, and then that was kind of why Zeus was like, "Bro, you gotta stop that." But then, because Zeus happened to be one of his children and didn't fancy the idea of being eaten, but he kind of turned around and did that once himself. I don't think Hera appreciated it.